Okay, so this is day 2 of special segments and triangles. We're going to do something a little bit different with them today, but we do have to be able to identify whether a segment is a perpendicular bisector, an angle bisector, a median, an altitude, or none. More than one answer can apply. So go ahead and pause the video and try these on your own, and then we'll check when you're done. Okay, so if you look at what this one does, it comes from the vertex, hits the opposite side, and gives you 2 congruent segments. That's what a median is. So this is a median. If you look at this one right here, comes from a vertex, hits the opposite side, and makes right angles. So that's an altitude. This one right here comes from the vertex, hits the opposite side, and gives you 2 congruent segments. So that's a median. But it comes from a vertex, hits the opposite side, and gives you right angles. So it's also an altitude. And if it's a median and an altitude, it's a perpendicular bisector also. Because if you look, it's a segment that gives you 2 congruent parts and right angles. All right, this one right here does not come from a vertex. So median and altitude are out. Then I look and I say, okay, is it a perpendicular bisector? There's no perpendicularness here. If there was a right angle here, then yeah, it's a perpendicular bisector. Or if there was a right angle here, then yeah, it's a perpendicular bisector, but it's not. So this is nothing. Next one here doesn't come from a vertex. So it's not a median, it's not an altitude. So now I just want to see if it's a perpendicular bisector. So if I look, I have a midpoint right here because I have 2 congruent parts, and I do have right angles. So this is a perpendicular bisector. Last one does not come from a vertex, so median and altitude are out. But I want to check to see if it's a perpendicular bisector. So I look right here. This is cut into 2 congruent parts. That's a bisector, but it's not perpendicular there also. So this is, once again, neither. If there were marks right here, that would be a perpendicular bisector, but it's not, so it's not. So this is neither again. It says none. Okay, next we're going to be writing equations of lines. So we have to talk about these 4 things because you need to know them in order to do what we're doing today. So first off, you need the midpoint formula. We did midpoint in chapter 1. We're talking about the midpoint of in between 2 endpoints. So if you have 2 endpoints, this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. The midpoint is the point right in the middle, and how I get that is I take an average of my x's and an average of my y's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the x's and divide it by 2, and then I'll add the y's and divide it by 2, and that's how I find a midpoint. All right, next we need to know our slope formula. Our slope is m, and to find it, we're going to do rise over run. So we're going to take our y values and subtract them, and then take your x values and subtract them. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, next we need to know about perpendicular lines. What do we know about perpendicular lines' slopes? We know their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Okay, so we need to know opposite reciprocals. So if I gave you the slope of 2, the opposite reciprocal of that is negative, and then I have to do 2 over 1 flipped, which is 1 over 2. Or if I had the slope of negative 1/5, the opposite reciprocal of that is positive, and then 5 over 1, which is 5. Okay? Also remember, negative 1 and positive 1 are opposite reciprocals. It's a fast one to do. All right, last is point slope form. This is the form that we will be using because it's the easiest. It's the one that is used the most in your high school career. So point slope, to remind you, is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay? People want to use y equals mx plus b. We are never going to use y equals mx plus b unless it specifically asks us to, okay, which it doesn't. All right, so let's get started here. This one says write an equation of a line. So our answer is going to be a line in the form y minus y1 because it says in point slope form. For the perpendicular bisector of AC, Okay, so now I'm going to look at AC. Do I have a perpendicular bisector drawn right now? No, so let's draw one. So I'm going to bisect AC perpendicularly. So here's AC. I want to bisect it. So I'm going to put a point right in the middle, two congruent segments. Now I'm going to draw in the perpendicular bisector because I haven't done that. Remember, it has to be perpendicular. There we go. And now I'm going to go back to my green pen right here to show that that's perpendicular. So that blue line is my perpendicular bisector. I want to write an equation of this blue line right here. Okay, now, to write an equation of a line in point-slope form, you need two things. You need a point, and you need the slope of that line. Once you have it, you can write it in point-slope form. So let's talk about a point. I need a point on this blue line. Now, this point is not on the blue line, okay? But a point that is on the blue line is this point right here. What's so special about that point? It's the midpoint. So we have to find that midpoint. So I'm actually going to write midpoint right here. So I'm going to find the midpoint of, that's the midpoint of AC. So I need to find A's location. This is left 3 and down 2. So this is the point -3, -2. These tick marks are all at 5. So I can say that this one's at 5, 10, and then 11, 12. So C is over 12. And then down, if you look right here, this red tick marks 5. So one more is 6. So this is down 6. All right, so I need to find my midpoint. Remember what you're going to do here. You're going to take your x values and add them. -3 plus 12 and divide it by 2. Then you're going to do the same thing with your y values. -2 plus -6 divided by 2. Okay, so -3 plus 12 is what I have to do first. That's 9. And then 9 divided by 2 is a decimal, so I'm just going to leave it as 9/2. You can write 4.5, but that's an extra step. All right, here, -2 plus a -6 is -8. -8 divided by 2 is -4. So notice I'm not leaving that as -8 over 2 because I can do that. All right, now I need to find the slope of this blue line. So I need 2 points to find the slope. And if you look at my note, it's pretty shaky because I guessed where it would be. So I only have 1 point on that. So what I'm going to do instead is say, hey, can I find the slope of that green line or that purple line that I have highlighted? Yes, I can because it has 2 points. Now, what's so special about AC and my perpendicular bisector? They are perpendicular. So once I find the slope of AC, all that I have to do is do the opposite reciprocal to find the slope of my perpendicular bisector. So now I'm going to find the slope of AC. So I'm going to do M equals, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to do y2, which is -6, minus y1, which is a -2. So since it's a double negative, I'm going to make that positive, over x2, which is 12, minus x1, which is a -3, double negative again, so I'll make it positive. All right, so now I'm going to get my slope is -6 plus 2 is -4. 12 plus 3 is 15. So the slope of the green line, AC, is -4 over 15. Now remember, I want the perpendicular line. So what's the opposite reciprocal? Well, that number's negative, so mine's positive, and then I need to flip it, 15 over 4. So now I'm ready for my last step, which is write the equation of the perpendicular bisector. I need a point, and I need the slope, which I have both of. So I have y minus y1, which is a -4. So I make it positive, equals m, 15/4 times x minus x1, which is 9 over 2. So make sure you don't confuse it with this x1 or this y1 because this is our new point right here. And there's your line. Okay, let's try another one right away here. It says write an equation of a line in point slope form for the perpendicular bisector of AB. So notice this is the exact same triangle, but now I'm going to perpendicular bisect AB. So I'm going to highlight AB first. I want to perpendicular bisect that. So I need a point right in the middle. That's a midpoint. And then I'm going to be perpendicular to that. So I'm going to come straight up, make the right line right there. And now I need to write the equation of my perpendicular bisector, this orange line right here, okay, the highlighted orange line. So I need two things to write an equation of a line. I need a point. I need that midpoint. That is the midpoint of AB. So now I need to know where A is and I need to know where B is. A, as we said before, is at -3, -2. B is at 9, 6. So now I'm going to find the midpoint. I'm going to do, my x is added, -3 plus 9, and then divide that by 2. My y is added, 6 plus -2. Sorry, -3 plus 9 divided by 2, and then -2 plus 6 divided by 2. And you could have done 6 plus -2. It's the same thing. Okay, -3 plus 9 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. -2 plus 6 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that's my midpoint, 3, 2. You might be saying, hey, I can tell that's at 3, 2. Can I just say 3, 2? Well, what if your sketch is off? So no. Now I need to find the slope. Once again, I can't find the slope of my orange line, but I can find the slope of my blue line. My blue line is perpendicular to it. So let's find the slope of the blue line, which is the slope of AB. We're going to do y2, which is 6, minus y1, which is a -2. So I'm going to change it to +2. Over x2, which is 9, minus x1, which is a -3. So I'm going to change that to +3. This is 8. This is 12. So I have a slope of, and I'm not going to keep it as 8/12 because 8/12 is simplifiable. What's the biggest number that goes into 8 that also goes into 12? 4. 4 goes in there twice. 4 goes in there 3 times. So my slope is 2/3. But that's not the slope of my perpendicular bisector. That's the slope of AB. Perpendicular bisector is perpendicular to that. So negative, and then flip it, 3/2. Now I can write my equation of my line. Remember, you're using this is x1 and this is y1. So you're going to do y minus y1, which is 2, equals m, which is -3/2, times x minus x1, which is 3. And there's the equation of my line. Okay. Here's the next one. It says triangle JIL has these vertices. So this is nice because the vertices are already listed for me. I don't have to say like, oh, that one's at 915 and that one's at 92. This first one here says write an equation of the line which would contain the altitude from L to IJ. So is the altitude from L to IJ drawn in yet? No. So first off, I have to know what altitude gives me. And altitude gives me perpendicular lines. So I'm not looking for two congruent segments this time. I'm just going to go from L to IJ, and I'm trying to make a line that is perpendicular to JI. So I want to write an equation of, let me get my highlighter out, this altitude right here. To write an equation of a line, I need two things. I need a point on the line, and I need the slope. Do I have a point on this line? This time the answer is yes. I have this point right here, L. So I do not need a midpoint because this is not in the middle, not midpoint. Okay? All right, so L is 915. It's right there. So I'm going to use 915. Now I need the slope of that line. So to find slope, I need 2 points. Do I have 2 points on that line? No. But I do know it's perpendicular to JI. So I'm going to find the slope of JI using my slope formula. So I'm going to find slope of JI. And then I will take the opposite reciprocal of that. So here's J and here's I. So these are the 2 points that I'm using. So I'm going to do Y2, which is 2, minus Y1, which is 10, over X2, which is 9, minus X1, which is a -3. So double negative turns into positive. So that is -8 over 9 plus 3, 12. Once again, this fraction is simplifiable because both of those numbers are divisible by 4. 4 goes in there twice. 4 goes in there 3 times. Remember, it was a negative number. All right, I'm not using that as my slope. My altitude is perpendicular to that. So I need the opposite reciprocal of -3/2, which is positive the opposite reciprocal of negative 2 over 3, which is positive 3 over 2. So now I can write my equation of my line. I'm going to do y minus, remember this is x1, this is y1, 15 equals m, which is 3 over 2, times x minus x1, which is 9. And there's my line. All right, here's another one. Write an equation of the line which would contain the altitude from J to Li. So now I'm going to draw an altitude from J to Li. Now remember, I want it to be perpendicular to Li. Li is a vertical line, so the perpendicular line is horizontal. So this is going to be the easiest one we do. If you look at that line, it has no slope. Okay? It is a horizontal line. Remember Vuxhoy? Horizontal lines have no slope, and they are y equals. They are y equals whatever y value this goes through. If you look to see what y value that's going through, each of these tick marks is 5. So this is 5, 10. So y equals 10 is my horizontal line right there. All right, next we have triangle SGB, and I also already gave you the vertices. A says write an equation of a line that would contain the altitude from G to SB. So I want to draw an altitude from G to SB. There's my right angle. To write an equation of an altitude, to write an equation of a line, you need two things. You need a point and you need the slope. Do I have a point on that line? Sure do. It's G. It's right there. So G, instead of, I can just look right here, see where it's at. It's at 5, negative 2. Now I need the slope of this blue line. Do I know the slope of that blue line? No, I don't, but I do know it's perpendicular to this line, SB. So I'm going to find the slope of SB. Make sure you're using S and B. So I'm going to do M equals Y2, which is 1, minus Y1, which is 7, over X2, which is 15, minus X1, which is 4. So I get negative 6 over 15 minus 4, 11. Now that's the slope of SB. I want the slope of my altitude, which is perpendicular. Opposite would be positive. 6 over 11 is reciprocal, 11 over 6. So now I can write my equation of my line. Y minus, remember this is x1, this is y1. A negative 2, so that turns into plus 2, equals m, 11 6, times x minus 5. Okay, next one, write an equation of the line, which is the perpendicular bisector of SB. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete the altitude because it's in my way, and I'm going to perpendicularly bisect SB. So first off, if I want to bisect SB, I have to have a midpoint. So I do need a midpoint this time. Then I need that segment that's perpendicular to it. So I'm writing an equation of this orange line right here. All right, I need a point and I need the slope. So first off, I need a point, which is the midpoint. So I am going to have to do the midpoint there. It's the midpoint of SB. So I'm using SB again. So I'm going to add my x values, 4 plus 15, divide that by 2. Add my y values, 7 plus 1 divided by 2. I want to make sure that's a 1 and not a negative 1 real quick. It is. Okay. Now I know where my midpoint is. It is at 4 plus 15 is 19, so 19 halves. If you want to write, what is that, 9.5, I'm fine with that. And then 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. There's my point. Now I need the slope. So I want the slope of this line. Okay, so this line, I don't have 2 points, but I have what it's perpendicular to. It's perpendicular to SB. So now I have to find the slope of SB, but if you recall, we already found the slope of SB. It was negative 6 elevenths. So the perpendicular slope is 11 6. I don't have to do the work again. So now I can write my equation of my line. This is x1, this is y1. Y minus y1, which is 4, equals m, which is 11 6, times x minus x1, which is 19 over 2. Okay, we have 2 more to practice. If you think you're good, you can go ahead and move on to the homework. If not, here's 2 more. Write an equation of a line that would contain the altitude from C to AB. So from C to AB, there's my altitude right there. Okay? All right, remember I need a point and I need the slope to write the equation of the line. Do I have a point on that line? I sure do. C right here. So C is at 10, 11. Got my point, 10, 11. I also need the slope of that line. Do I have the slope of that pink line? No. But I can find the slope of AB, which is perpendicular to it. So I'm going to find the slope of AB, and then I'll take the opposite reciprocal. So I need to know where A is at. A is at -5, 9. B is at -2, +2. All right, finding my slope. y2, which is 2, minus y1, which is 9, over x2, which is -2, minus x1, which is a -5. So double negative makes a positive. That's -7 over -2 plus 5 is 3. So the slope of my altitude, which is perpendicular to that, is +3/7. So now I can write my equation of my line. This is x1, this is y1. Y minus 11 equals m, which is 3/7 times x minus 10. All right, the very last one here, write an equation of the perpendicular bisector of SB. So here's SB on the bottom. I want to bisect it. And then I want to do that perpendicularly. So I want the equation of this orange line right here. To write the equation of that line, I need two things. I need a point, which is this midpoint right here. And then I need this slope. So I'm going to start with the midpoint of SB. Okay, so where is S located? S is at 3, 3. And B is at, that looks like 14, -3. So let's find the midpoint. I'm going to do 3 plus 14 divided by 2. 3 plus -3 divided by 2. So that's 17/2, 0. Now I can find the slope of SB. y2, which is -3, minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is 14, minus x1, which is 3. -6 over 11. My perpendicular slope is 11/6. Y minus 0 equals 11/6 times x minus 17/2. All right, that's it for today. You can go ahead and get started on